The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.
With so many people living longer, the fear of outliving your money becomes a reality for many of us. Will I be a financial burden? Will I outlive my money? How will I be remembered? My name is Neil Himmelstein, president of Main Street Planning Group. Please contact me by visiting mainstreetplanninggroup.com. That's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. I will introduce you to strategies that will guarantee you will not outlive your money, that can guarantee you will not be a burden on your loved ones. Through a collaborative approach, we will uncover solutions that offer tax-efficient strategies, lifetime income, and legacy planning, choice, organization, direction, and education. That is the code we stand behind. Contact mainstreetplanninggroup.com. That's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. And listen to me every Friday at 3 p.m. as I host the Main Street Code for Financial Success, right here on 103.9 LI News Radio. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein. I'm here every Friday at 3. And when we talk about our code, we talk about choice, organization, direction, and education. And we help hundreds of advisors across the United States in areas of life insurance, long-term care, disability, annuities, and life settlements. And today, I really want to talk about our lives and how we're living, and most people spend their lives hoping that things go right, but hope is not a financial strategy. Today we're talking about predictability. As a matter of fact, that's the word of the day. I don't know if any of you remember, I used to watch reruns of Groucho Marx, but in the reruns, you know, with Groucho Marx, he had this TV show late at night, and it would be, say the word and you get the bird. And the bird today is predictability. So predictability is very important. It's how to replace the guesswork with structure. And the most successful financial plans aren't the ones with the highest returns. They're the ones that you can count on. And that's what predictability is all about. So if you look at market returns, they're unpredictable. As a matter of fact, in the last couple of weeks, if you were heavily invested in the market, you're seeing the market go down, a brief up and down, you know, with the crisis in Iran and everything. Income planning can be predictable. And last week we talked about the difference between a growth strategy and an income strategy and how you have to shift. Life events can be uncertain, so you really need a protection strategy for certainty. So, what does predictability really mean? It means predictable income, predictable expenses, predictable outcomes. Now, as you may know or not know, inflation is running rampant right now. Anybody that goes out and buys oil and fills their tank with gas or buys food realizes that we have an inflation rate that was announced this morning of 3.3%. I think it's higher than that. I know what my bills are. You know what your bills are. And you know what you're paying for your property taxes and your oil and your gas. And if you're in retirement or you're near retirement, you're very much concerned that, hey, my expenses are going up. Listen, if we have planned properly, we realize that it's a predictable outcome that our expenses are going up. Are we prepared? Do we have income that's going to cover these inflation costs? That's part of planning. People get it wrong. They have an over-reliance on, okay, the market's just going to go straight up, go straight up, go straight up, and that's going to be my plan. Well, it doesn't happen that way. So what happens is when there's a downturn and you need more income, you're forced into selling. And if you're in a selling mode during income, that can be very stressful. It impacts your decision making. That you're selling to pay your expenses, and all of a sudden you have less to grow for the next thing. So how do we grow this predictability income, we do it through Social Security, through pensions, through annuities, and structured income at retirement. Some sort of structured income, whether it's a bond portfolio or it's annuities, that are going to pay me a guaranteed income during retirement. We also have to look at tax predictability, Roth strategies, and diversification of tax buckets, market strategies. We need some sort of a bucket approach. So we could talk about lots of things as far as predictability and how we can control that. Now, I work with a lot of different clients, and because I work with agents across the country, I want to tell you about some of the high net worth clients we're working with. I probably worked with about 10 clients worth over $100 million. And the amazing thing about those 10 clients is they all have a couple things in common. I'd say almost all of them are heavily invested in real estate. And I would say most all of them, worth over $100 million, pay zero taxes. I mean zero. How is that possible? Well, it's possible because they're investing in real estate and they're depreciating it, and there's all kinds of tax ways of diversifying and being effective in buying and selling real estate, whether they're using depreciation or 1031 exchanges, and I see they have losses, and all of a sudden they're not paying taxes, yet you and I are paying taxes. The next biggest asset they buy is life insurance. What I found is with the high net worth people, and even people making, far less money or accumulate a lot less money, they've come to the realization that 40 to 50% of all the income they make is they have a partner. And I'm not saying to avoid taxes, but that partner is the federal government and the state government. So these high net worth people have it figured out that, hey, if I don't have to give 40% or 30% or 50% to my partner, that's all for me. So they're not paying taxes. They understand that if I can minimize my partner's payout, I can maximize my income. So the second thing they buy is life insurance. Because life insurance is tax-free to their heirs. And they don't want to give up their money after they're gone. So while they're accumulating assets and buying and selling real estate and other things, they don't want to have a partner. And after they pass, they don't want to have a partner. They want that partner to be their family. They want their family to have their wealth. So they buy very large amounts of life insurance. Now, there's a lot of taxes that can occur after you pass. There are estate taxes and there are income taxes. If you structure it right, there's no estate taxes. The proceeds of a life insurance policy are federally tax-free to your heirs. Federally tax-free. No matter how much you buy, it's tax-free. Now, not estate tax-free. It's a whole nother tax. There's local, New York State estate tax, and there's federal estate tax. If you put your money and your policy is owned by a trust, a life insurance trust, you could have that money go to your children and family, estate tax-free, federal income tax-free. It's extremely well leveraged and extremely well positioned to be tax-free. Now, how does that appeal to you if you're not in that category? Well, it still works the same way, whether you have $1 million, $100,000, or $100 million. Life insurance is a very, very powerful tax tool. And I say this because we want to bring Wall Street down to Main Street. So when I'm telling you about predictability, this is something very predictable. Very predictable. We can create predictability income with annuities that you can't outlive. And then when you're gone, we have very predictable what we leave behind by doing proper life insurance planning. You're listening to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. This is Neil Himmelstein. Best way to reach me is 631-647-4694. Thank you, and we'll be right back after a break. Welcome back to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein, and before the break, we were talking about the word of the day, which is predictability. Predictability is like a paycheck in your retirement. You don't build a house on shifting sand. Why build your retirement on it? You need some predictability in retirement. Airplanes don't rely on hope. They rely on systems. So we need to set you up on a system so that hey, you're comfortable in retirement, and we can do that with annuities, with life insurance, with protection. We can give you predictability. Predictability isn't boring, it's powerful. That's where financial theory meets real life reliability. So that's my biggest message of the day. Now, we've had a lot of calls this week about different things. Yesterday, I got a call from a client of mine, and this very serious situation. He said his coworker is not doing very well because his mother is terminally ill, and he doesn't have enough funds to hire a private nurse, and he's got to spend the weekends with her, and it's affecting his work, and it's affecting his job. And what do I do? So the first thing is have him call me. I'm not an elder law attorney, but obviously the mother needs elder law planning, needed it last week, last month, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. I'm not sure if she owns her own house. Unfortunately, things happen very quickly, and they happen very quickly, and they were unprepared for it. They were unprepared for the eventuality that, okay, who's going to take care of mom? So how's that affecting? Well, first off, mom, I don't know if she lives in her own home or not. When he calls me today, I'll find out. But very often, it's somebody in their own house, and they want to stay in their house as long as they can. She needs care. I don't know if it's memory care. I don't know if it's physical care. I don't know if it needs somebody, but her insurance isn't covering it. So who's taking care of it? Your health insurance doesn't take care of that care. This is where long-term care comes in. This is where the what do they call that? Where the car hits the road. This is where it meets. This is where all of a sudden something happens. What do I do? We didn't arrange for this predictability. So immediately she's going to need to do some sort of Medicaid planning if they're running out of income. She can't afford private nursing. I'm thinking Medicare. I'm thinking Medicaid. I don't know. Okay, so immediately we have to get her to an attorney. But if she wants to stay in her own house, it may be too late. We don't know. If she needs this full-time care, she may need to look at another place to live. Meanwhile, look at the effect it's having on her son, who is having trouble at work, who can't put in the hours, who can't do the work, who's completely distracted, and this is a stress factor on a caregiver. It happens to us every single day. It's not just planning for ourselves, but planning for our parents who maybe didn't put a plan together. This happens all the time. Sometimes you could be the best planner in the world, and something happens in your family, and you're not ready for it, because maybe they didn't do the preparation. I encourage you not only to make a plan for yourself, think about planning for your children, and think about planning for your parents. It's all has to be done at the same time. We had another situation that happened this week, and I'm telling you this because this happens every day. Their child is off to college. The child got sick at college. He had pneumonia. Really don't want him staying at college with pneumonia. Have to get him to a hospital. But you don't have authorization to get him to a hospital because the child doesn't have a healthcare proxy. The child has to make the decisions. Maybe the child is not in a position to make decisions. Maybe they're, maybe they fell or they had pneumonia or something. They're sick. So you can't make those decisions. That child's away. They don't have a healthcare proxy. This is basic stuff. You should have a healthcare proxy. Somebody can help you make decisions, particularly for kids going off to college, parents, yourself. If you're incapacitated, it's very difficult to make decisions for yourself. If you happen to be in a hospital yourself, do you know how crazy it is and how many decisions you have to make? And you're worried about getting better, and everybody's worried about, well, who can make this decision? Not just life-threatening decisions, which are utmost important, but should you have this procedure? Should you not have this procedure? Very difficult when you're under a knife and somebody's asking, hey, what do you think? The doctor said I should have this procedure. Maybe you shouldn't have that procedure. It's always good to do preparation and have the legal stuff ready, like a healthcare proxy, very basic. Having a will, very important. Where do my things go? Who has the directives to do things? Having a trust set up. Having somebody you trust to help you, guide you through all these things that if you're incapacitated, you can't do. It just reminds me of panic planning. Everybody wants to get fire insurance when their house is on fire. Boy, I should have bought that fire insurance. Everybody wants it. But you have to buy the insurance before your house is on fire. But we get calls every day. Oh, I'd love to get long-term care insurance. Why? Because I'm sick and I know I'm going to need it. Well, that's not the time to get it. The time is well before then, because once you're sick, you can't get it. It's very simple. Nobody's going to insure you when your house is on fire. Now, I've said this before, but there's a 70% chance that at some point in your life, you're going to need help. You're going to need help in your house with some sort of long-term care. Either you're going to have a cognitive thing where you're going to lose your marbles a little bit, or it could be physical. Half the time it's mental. Half the time it's you forget things, you don't know this, you get Alzheimer's, and it's a problem. You're going to need that help. Your health insurance, Medicare, does not cover you for that help in your house. It just doesn't. It says it right there when you fill out that Medicare application. Does not cover this. Now, Medicaid, different than Medicare. If you impoverish yourself and if you go through 5 years of records and you prove that you can get Medicaid, where the government will step in, they will give you some limited help in your home. Yes, they will. But they're going to do it on their terms. Not your terms, their terms. If you need to, if they deem, you know what, you qualify, you've done everything, you filled out the paperwork, you went to an attorney or you did it yourself and you passed this whole 5 years of looking back and getting rid of your assets to where you're impoverished, and they say, okay, you're on Medicaid, and then something goes wrong. And they say, oh, well, the best thing, the cheapest thing for us is to send you to a nursing home. Let's find a nursing home for you. Well, let's see. Let's send you an hour away to some nursing home from where you live, because that's cheapest for us, and put you in a semi-private room with some other person who's probably lost their mind or screaming in pain all day long. And that's the cheapest thing for us. Let's put us there, and then your family is an hour or 2 hours away to come visit you, hopefully every day or once in a while. That's what Medicaid will do. So you need to take action for yourself and do the right planning. You're listening to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein. I'm here every Friday at 3. If you miss an episode, you can catch me on Apple, catch me on Spotify. You can live stream me if you're out of town, or go to 103.9 and go on their website, Online News Radio. And the best way to reach me is 631-647-4694. I welcome your comments, and have a great day.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.